One family that left for a new start in the States has settled in Nashville. And for them, this Christmas was a day to reflect on the past and pray for the future. More from News Channel 5's Tony Aiello.
Come on in. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too.
And Tanya Batsuk expects a happy new year in her new country. 6 weeks ago, she and sons Boris, Eugene, and Slavik left the Ukraine in what used to be the Soviet Union. Son Alex left 10 months ago.
Danny, I am very grateful to you for present. Okay?
Grateful, too, for Deneen Alexandro, who's helping them settle in Nashville for their first Christmas out from under the Russian bear.
We
have never felt freedom like that, and we wanted to get to feel this freedom, and we believe that God allowed us to come over here.
God and Mikhail Gorbachev. The Batsuks are devout Christians, and for years under communist rule, they were persecuted for their faith. Then came Gorbachev.
All right. As soon as he became president, it became possible for Christians to feel free. I basically like him, she says. Today, our being here, it's to his benefit because he made it possible for us to come here.
Okay.
On Christmas, in Russia now, you would probably eat just potatoes.
But here, they marvel at seeing cucumbers and tomatoes in the middle of winter. Most of all, they marvel at how much Americans like to smile.
Our country is a country of crying, tears, and my nature is joyful, and I like to be joyful.
And it's a special kind of joy on Christmas Day in America. Tony Aiello, News Channel 5.
And another joyous celebration
Actually clapped when it was over. Alec Batsuk is from the Ukraine. He says his old country has a long way to go to achieve real change.
It's not a change. It's not a change. It is just a change of name, but not of substance.
Alex's family left the former Soviet Union about 6 weeks ago and joined him here in Nashville. And this was their first Christmas in America. Williamson County residents celebrated a calm Christmas that was...
Protesters with rocks, clubs, and guns attack government police, sparking deadly battles and bring the country closer to civil war. Power struggle turns deadly violent today. Hardline protesters with rocks, clubs, and guns attack government police, sparking deadly battles and bring the country closer to civil war.
This is the News Channel 5 Late Report.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Russia is under a state of emergency tonight after a day of unrest. Hardline government opponents unleashed firepower, being described as the worst violence in Moscow since the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. But President Clinton says the U.S. must not waver in its support for Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Locally, Nashvillians with ties to Moscow are watching and worrying as the power struggle escalates. Day-long violence kicked off with thousands of protesters hostile to President Boris Yeltsin storming police barricades. The riot patrols were at the mercy of the crowd that outnumbered them, and many were beaten with their own weapons. Yeltsin declared a state of emergency as he arrived in Moscow, but self-declared President Alexander Rutskoy gave his followers 2 orders, which they followed. They seized the mayor's office, and in a brilliant blaze of gunfire took over the state-run TV station. And Rutskoy urged police and soldiers to switch sides.
I ask you to defect to the people.
U.S. officials are keeping a close watch on the developments.
The key questions will be what the military does, what the internal security forces do. If they get involved on both sides, then you can have a civil war.
A column of at least 40 armored vehicles has taken up key positions in Moscow, outside the Defense Ministry and near the Kremlin. President Clinton says he doesn't expect Yeltsin to be deposed and continues to stand behind him.
I still am convinced that the United States must support President Yeltsin and the process of bringing about free and fair elections.
At least 24 civilians and soldiers were killed, as many as 100 injured today. The events unfolding in Russia are being watched closely here in Nashville tonight. Many local Russians hear stories from relatives about shortages of food and clothing and about political discontent. As News Channel 5's Mark Drury reports, they are hoping their native country can find some way to avoid civil war.
Try to find a secret now.
Now they're in very bad shape. They need help.
There are prayers for peace every Sunday at Nashville's Christ Church. But on this day, there's a sense of urgency to the prayers of some members of the congregation. About 50 members of this church are former residents of the Soviet Union. And as their native country moves closer to political and social upheaval, there is deep concern here. 23-year-old Alla Shukhov spoke with friends in Moscow only yesterday. Everyone there, she says, is uncertain about the future.
The government doesn't have enough power to hold and have control.
Slavik Batsuk sings in the choir. His brothers Boris and Eugene are members of the congregation.
For nation will rise against nation.
In their home, there are daily prayers for the future of Russia. But Slavik and his brothers think it will take help from the West to stabilize the Yeltsin government.
It will be worse and worse for my people, I can say, because I feel a pain, in my heart for people who there and they, because we have here, all this fun, all these foods and clothes, everything, and they got nothing.
Younger brother Boris applauds the U.S. decision to quickly back Yeltsin.
President Bill Clinton, he supported the Boris Yeltsin, and he said that he's going to help, and that's just great. So it will be a good help.
But Eugene feels civil war could become a reality if the Russian army gets involved.
The army can fall apart every day. Some would be for Yeltsin, some would be for the, let's say, old Communist Party.
Having seen their faith banned under communism, the Batsuk family is convinced that now only God may be able to save the Russian Republic from disaster. Mark Drury, News Channel.